Well, welcome back, guys. We saw some pretty interesting games recently, and now we're going to go into our winners match between Osaka and Sukipan. Osaka played Firebat earlier on, and it was a pretty close match with involving a lot of patrons and a lot of face hunters. Meanwhile, Sukipan, he had a pretty dominating performance against his opponent in the last round, Let Me Farm. Not only did he win 3-0, but it seems like he played really well in every single game. So
Yeah.
Osaka will definitely have his hands pretty tied up in this next match.
So this is the winners match, which means the person who wins this match moves on to the semifinals, quarterfinals,
That's correct. The semifinals of the tournament.
semifinals. Yeah. And of course, these guys are guaranteed some prize money at this point, even for this position. I'm pretty sure, but
You actually only get prize money if you're top four,
okay. So
but
they have to win this.
it's a lot of prize money. The
Yeah.
uh, the tournament has a 6K prize pool overall. First prize is $3,000, which is a lot more than some like the entire prize pools of some
Yeah.
tournaments.
That's a really good prize. Not only that, you get to qualify and get a trip to PAX, which is the extra. You want to win these, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you get to play for a huge prize pool at PAX, but it's just like the opportunity to go to PAX is pretty awesome. Like
Yeah.
even if you finish eighth at PAX, you get some BlizzCon points or you get some Hearthstone World Championship points, and you get to walk around PAX for a while, just to
Yeah.
have that experience.
Hang out and be like, oh, I'm playing in the tournament. I qualified for this because I'm awesome.
Yeah,
It's a good
I mean,
time.
Hop form, you're pretty close to qualifying, so
Yeah, don't give me that story. I haven't qualified anything yet. Thanks, Monk.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So it's kind of gonna be the classic story of the invitational player versus the open player, except Osaka was not invited. He qualified for this tournament,
Yep.
so
These
pretty
are they
exciting.
both qualified, right? Osaka qualified on points, and Sekifan came through the open bracket.
Yeah, although you would expect that Osaka, he's like such a high profile name,
Yeah.
that he would be like the invited player, right?
When in fact he was just good enough to win his entire way here. In any case, this matchup should be pretty good. I like that they have different lineups. They both brought Patron Warrior, but that's the only similarity. All of their other matchups are going to be really interesting to see. And as long as we don't end up with a Patron versus Patron mirror, I think it's going to be very high skill to determine who's actually going to succeed in these types of games.
Yeah, I mean, I I kind of want to host a tournament these days where you ban out Patron Warrior, because sometimes like it often feels like every other match there's a patron involved, and that was actually true of the last series where in
Yeah.
2 out of 3 matches there was a patron involved, and
Yep.
in series number 1, I believe in 3 out of 5 games a patron warrior was involved.
Yep. I've been watching the open brackets for this tournament, and there are a lot of times where a Patron Warrior is not what makes it into the finals of the open qualifiers. So there have been like some other pretty successful decks, but it seems like when it comes time, like for this tournament, they got to re-pick all of their decks. People are going to pick the thing that they're confident is going to have a good matchup no matter what, and they end up picking the Patron Warrior.
Yeah, to be honest, for most players, I don't think Patron Warrior is a good bring to a tournament, simply because in most players they're gonna have a less than 50% win rate with Patron. It's not a deck that you can just like auto win with,
Yeah.
and also I feel like most players will be preparing for Patron, so it just makes that deck a little weaker.
How fitting we were talking about this, and we walk into the first game, and it will be a Patron Warrior versus Patron Warrior mirror match.
Yeah, I was just setting it up. I actually knew exactly what was gonna happen.
I agree that most like it is a very difficult deck to play, and although we see these pros do it, and it can get a little repetitive when you see it often. If you're watching average level players play a deck like this, you can notice there are staggering differences in the choices that they'll make and the reasons that they don't have that exact amount of damage or they didn't calculate in time. And we've seen that in professional tournaments too. I can remember in one of the recent ESL tournaments, there was a player who missed like a really obvious lethal. I think it was Koyuki. It wasn't like, it's obvious after the fact. And when you're in that moment, it's tough. But
Yeah.
even the professional players will make some pretty big errors with a deck like this.
Yeah, and you say like average players will make a lot of errors. It's not just average players. It's like I would want to say like first of all, everyone has made a mistake with Patron Warrior
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
in their life.
Oh
Pretty
yeah.
much every pro has made a mistake with Patron Warrior on stream sometime. But it feels like everyone, but maybe like the top 10 or 20 Patron Warriors are gonna have like a really subpar win rate. I would say everyone besides those top 10 or 20 players are gonna have a below 50% win rate with the deck in tournaments. It's just my experience overall.
I know I've heard Zale, who is like the warrior expert for Team Archon, um, mentioning that like a lot of the times in a patron warrior math, there's too much stuff there when you get one of those really big hands, and you just have to start doing things because there's the threat of the animation timers, and there's all these things that are coming together where even the absolute best player will admit that plenty of the time you're just going to start putting some stuff down and seeing how it actually works out.
Yeah, so interesting point there. I was listening to the Archon League cast yesterday, and Firebat mentioned that he did like some kind of simulation where there were three frothings on the board. No, where it was two frothings and three um it was three sludge belchers, and he
Oh
tried to do
man.
like he tried to kill them all, but it's like actually like physically impossible to get through the
Yep.
animations to kill all the belchers and all the slimes with like a whirlwind effect in order to activate the frothing berserkers as well.
Yep. I actually played a match like that on stream where I was playing the duplicate style mage and I duplicated Sludge Belcher, so I had three, and the opponent Patron Warrior played Armorsmith and Frothing, and just the amount of time for the Armorsmith and Frothing to calculate that damage, the oozes never spawned and he was not able to attack. And you can say that Sludge Belcher is greater than Patron Warrior in some way, even if it's not technically good enough.
Yeah, I remember when Sludge Belcher first came out, pretty much in every tournament, players actually did rope because of
Yeah.
the Belcher. There were like 3 or 4 times where it happened in professional games, and it's just coming back now because Patron Warrior is a thing.
It seems like a really interesting mechanic to introduce to a card game, but it does add that element of difficulty, which I think is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think there's arguments to be made on both sides, but I think both sides do have fair arguments. So, oh wow, this is Tempo Harrison Jones.
Yeah.
I think typically when players are like they're learning to play against Patron, people will tell you you just never want to do this play. But this makes some sense in order to set up for the and just to make sure like a good Emperor doesn't come down the next turn. But unfortunately, Death's Bite is going to come down immediately after, and that's just kind of the worst case scenario for Suki Pan.
Yeah. Ooh, but he does get to go first on patrons. The top deck was real. I did like that Harrison from him. I agree that it prevented the Emperor, and that's a really big play on 6 that you don't want to let happen. So, well, suddenly Osaka in a world of trouble.
All right, so he has one execute, and then he's like screwed.
Yep.
He
Yeah.
has well, he can charge the Dread Corsair. Okay, actually, he can clear this board, right? No, he can clear this board.
Nice.
I think
Can
this is like
he squeeze the Battle Rage in too? Yeah, he can, right?
yeah. This is actually the first time I've ever seen 4 patrons being cleared from just like with the opponent not having anything in his opening hands or in his on the board rather.
I mean, that did cost Osaka a ton of resources to do that. That was not cheap by any means. He played the full Death Bite out. He played out his charge. But he dealt with the threat, which otherwise ends the game. I think if he had a Frothing Berserker, he might have just dropped Emperor there and tried to go for a one-shot kill. But with no other looking like he could win with anything else, he might as well clear and then just try to live longer. Pretty unfavorable hand.
Yeah, mainly I want to say 2 lines of play, or well, there's actually a few. You can go for Acolyte Unstable, just like leave it there. You can possibly I can like of course draw more cards.
That's a nice play.
Yeah,
And
that's very
finds the
nice.
other charge. Finding that second Warsound commander is really important.
And now this is actually a really good hand to Emperor. Like whereas previously you like basically just reduce the cost of Whirlwind, which isn't that amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an amazing hand now. You've seen the Harrison already too, so you know that Death Bite is going to be guaranteed. You could just throw it on whenever you feel like it. Sukifan, I mean, I think you probably play Emperor here just because you don't have a lot else going on, but it really doesn't do anything for you. It's more just a 5/5 on the board.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is Sukipan doesn't have additional ways to draw cards.
Yep. Yeah, Osaka with the Battle Rages got so much farther through his deck. So drawing
Although,
the Warsong Commander was so important because, of course, he can pick up a patron at any point, and there's two patrons left. But they wouldn't be nearly as impressive if he didn't have the charge, and there would be only that single card that could be at the bottom of the deck. Sorry, I cut you off.
yeah, no problem. There's not a really easy way to deal with this Emperor right now. Although it feels like it doesn't feel too bad if he just does this play. It's just that his hand is so good that he can afford to use his cards inefficiently.
Yeah.
Like usually the whirlwinds are valuable, but because he is able to charge unstable wolves and he has the death spite in his hand, it's not as bad.
Normally you expect once the frothing combo comes down that the other guy's just dead, but Sucky Fan actually has so much health that I think he can live through like pretty much anything other than a double frothing is not going to kill him in a one turn.
Yeah. But then again, the issue is Sukipan. You can see he's in pain right now. He kind of tilts his head back.
Trying to do the math and see, okay, what if I draw this card? Because of course you want to plan ahead a little and you say, okay, what's my best draw? If I got that draw, should I be setting up for it? Could it win? Wow, he didn't attack. What?
So he's definitely setting up some kind of lethal that involves the 3 extra damage to face with the fireworks.
That has to be a huge tell to Askaka for him not to attack there. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't think you play patrons now. To see him not kill your Emperor, you know that one more tick of Emperor, you have like a guaranteed lethal with the Death Bite and the Patron Frothing combo.
So would you say just Death Spite and then Hero Power here?
Yeah, I think so. The one thing is he won't be able to trigger the Ghoul on anything. He needs Suki-Fan to play a creature for it to be useful at all. You'd really be thinking about this. To see him not kill your Emperor with a 3-attack weapon is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just go with this type of play, I don't think there's really any way for you to lose here.
Huh, it's fine.
Okay. Double Armor Smith makes a world of difference because if it was just single Armor Smith, then you wouldn't be able to get enough armor. Like the damage your opponent would gain would be more than like the armor you would gain.
Yeah. This is definitely not lethal. Not with the 2 Armor Smiths on the board. Right? I don't think there's... I didn't count exactly, but it seems very unlikely.
Well, we're gonna find out. I didn't think it was lethal either. Huh.
Okay.
Well, this is certainly a puzzle.
Maybe Suki Fan just felt like he has to do something.
I'm just gonna wait and see what happens.
If he plays both Inner Rages, the Frothing actually dies.
So he has to Inner Rage his Warsong Commander.
For 1 extra damage. It's not even close. You can just kill
Wait,
himself.
whoa.
Well, that wasn't enough damage anyways, but,
Well, that was embarrassing.
yeah.
I mean, okay, it wasn't embarrassing. It was just like BM, right?
It could have
Or
been a forfeit, but he wasn't necessarily dead there, right? And he could have. I think he felt like after he let the Emperor go off and didn't attack it with his weapon, that he had to do a big play. And he's right. When you let the other guy get two Emperor ticks, his hand will be. The whole thing is playable, and you're going to get one shot. But yeah, an
but
interesting
yeah.
match. Osaka took the game. What else can we say about that? It
Yeah,
was the Patron Warrior mirror, so.
I mean, I don't think Suki Pan would have won that anyway, but to kill your own frothing berserker, that's a new low there. I like there's like been some misplays with involving patron warrior, but usually they have to do with time. They have to do with like not getting that last patron hit in because of the animations.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Was that honorable Sudoku? I'm gonna
I
put it
guess.
that.
I think we'll write it off to a Sudoku. Interesting game. Anyways, leaves us both a little speechless, I think. But Skaka is going to be happy about that one. Of course, he went down in the first series, so this is going to feel a lot better for him. He's coming off a win, and now he picked up the first game. Going to be Rogue versus Patron Warrior. I give a small edge to the Rogue, but this is a really tactical match. This is something where, there's multiple decisions every turn.
Yeah, I found that this matchup is about like 55 to the rogue. So a lot of rogue players will say it's more favored, but it actually seems to be pretty close. The rogue has a lot of good
Yep.
blade flurries available, and they typically don't put too many minions on the board, unless Valley Teacher comes on the board. And we do know that Osaka is running the rogue version with two Valley Teachers and zero Pilot Shredders, so that's gonna kind of hurt him slightly in the matchup.
The Rogue is really vulnerable to getting one shot because they have no taunts and they just kind of sit there and take the damage. But yeah, they don't put a lot of creatures down, so it's difficult to line up that combo.
And one other thing to consider is Osaka is running double healbot, and even though that might not seem that great in the matchup, it does let you stave off that combo.
Yeah. A Suki fan, he should have been watching the earlier series, so it's very likely that he'll expect some heal bots at some point. Of course, these guys have no insight into the decks of their opponent except what they could have seen by watching the previous matches they've already played. So the fact that Osaka went all the way to Fatigue on his Rogue deck means that Suki fan could know the entire deck inside and out.
Yeah, I think with the open players as well, if you just look at the VODs from previously, I think open players tend to they only basically are familiar with one lineup generally because they
Yep.
don't play as in as many tournaments as invited players. So I've found just based off of experience is that the open players almost always will play the same decks as what they played in the open.
Yep, I agree with that.
There's also the mentality that like it did like my deck allowed me to qualify or my lineup allowed me to qualify, so I just might as well stick with it, just stick with what's been doing well.
Totally. I mean, I have that mentality. It won some games, it must be good. I'll keep playing it. The weapons are really good to have for the warrior in this match, so having that war axe at the start is pretty helpful, but he really wants to have a death bite soon.
Yeah, it's just that the cards he has in his hand, they don't really threaten that much, and it's kind of similar to when you're facing off against handlock. You can fill up a board full of patrons, but you kind of expect your opponent to have some kind of board clear.
Yep. Skaka does have it, so Soki fan could go for the 4 patron combo and it would get absolutely wrecked if he did do that. So, I mean, you really want Emperor here as Suki. If you could get Emperor, your hand is looking pretty close to lethal. Wouldn't quite be lethal, but it would be an enormous amount of pressure that you could easily pick up the finisher off of.
On the other hand, though, I feel like that second Inner Rage was possibly the worst draw in his entire deck.
I think you have to play out the patrons here, honestly. You have 2 patrons and you have a turn 6 perfect setup for them. The rogue doesn't necessarily have Blade Flurry, so even if he flurried it, you still have the backup patron. It's a winning move if he didn't have flurry.
I think it's just the psychological mindset of you see your opponent already has a 3 charge dagger.
Yeah.
So he like usually when you're blade flurrying or you're worried about blade flurry, that you have to worry about does he have the blade flurry first of all, and does he have either a deadly poison and a tinker sharpswood oil. I know that's very common, but when you see your opponent already has 100% that deadly poison, you're basically less likely or more likely to think that he has the entire combo. But I agree with you. It's going all in with patrons was definitely a winning play. I just don't see it if Sukipan keeps drawing dead in the next few turns. I don't see how he can get back in this game.
Well, at least on 8, he could do 3 patron charge with the inner rage. It's like really weak, but there's the Violet Teacher on the board, which would allow it to spawn more. So you could presumably kill a good chunk of the board. Oh man, this just looks so terrible with your current hand for this turn, though.
I have no idea what to do here.
Yeah, you could Battle Rage for 1 and then chop the 3/3 and armor up. Doesn't feel very good, but you see the rogue with only 3 cards. You might be thinking, all right, I could defend here, assuming he doesn't have a sprint.
I think you actually probably want to keep this Valley Teacher alive. I'm not really sure, but I feel like you want your opponent to use spells with the Valley Teacher on the board. But now that he's gotten a patron that has now that he's put patrons on the board, I think he'll want to kill off that Valley Teacher if possible. Because that Valley Teacher will be able to deal with patrons instead. But this seems to be a more defensive play. Sukipan, he's hoping that these patrons are threatening enough to warrant a trade here, but of course we know that's not going to happen.
Oh man, I can't believe he played the flurry there. That was an easy trade where you hit the Violet Teacher into the 3/3 and you attack the weapon into the other one. He's just pushing for lethal damage, but you could get punished very hard by using your only flurry there. Oh, Harrison showing up 1 turn after the weapon was used. That's really unfortunate.
And I think that's what's actually going to happen. He is going to get punished. Although...
So this way he gets to execute the teacher. I kind of would have liked to see the charge there, but...
Yeah, I was completely expecting the charge there.
It's going to execute both. I mean, this works out pretty well, too.
Actually, I'm not sure if he's going to execute the teacher.
So yeah, he's if he leaves the teacher, then the rogue essentially has trouble playing spells. So any spell would add up the board. Oh, that Blade Flurry was really ill-fated.
Yeah, imagine if he had Blade Flurry here. If he did, then basically both players would be top decking, and I have to give the edge there to Rogue because they have Azure Drakes, they have they have sprints, for example. Meanwhile, I feel like the Warrior player, once they get to a hand that's really tiny, they're not going to be able to refill it as easily because Battle Rage is kind of dependent on already having a big hand.
I mean, there's a lot of different psychological impacts would have had to not flurry last turn. Where he didn't flurry, he would have attacked with a deadly poison, so Suki fan might have thought, okay, there is no flurry, or there's no second weapon buff, played out the patrons, got flurried. He could have also thought, there is something there, I'm going to wait, you're not play my patrons, and then Oskak would have much more time to be drawing into his sprints and stuff to give him a proper hand.
Yeah. I think just the aspect of putting playing both your heal bots right now puts Oskaka in a mindset where he just has to be aggressive, and playing the Blade Flurry on that turn kind of fed into that mindset as well.
There's a lot of great plays for Sukifan here. Be interesting to see which one he chooses, but it seems like no matter what, he can clear the board, and Oskaka has only a sap in his hand, so it's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah, not only is that bad, but Oskaka's he's used all his heals, so no more healing at all here.
Oof. Kind of an unfortunate draw, because then he should have played the charge if he had the second charge. Now you really regret not doing that. It's also much harder to clear the board here. If he had played the unstable ghoul with charge, he could have cleared completely and he would have ended up with 2 patrons.
Yeah, but I mean, you're at 15 HP. How scared are you, really?
Well, this works out pretty well.
Yeah. Sukipan just playing the complete defensive game here.
I don't see anything Osaka can really do here. Play out the SI agent. You know, sapping Harrison's bad, sapping Patron's bad. Oh, you can clear the patrons off the board. Sap the unstable ghoul, trade, and SI agent. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and now you don't have to worry about patrons at all, right?
Yep.
Because all patrons will have been dealt with, and these 1/1 tokens are now not a liability. So that makes sense. And I guess you SI the Harrison here. Okay, face.
Well,
So with this play, he's setting up a win by drawing Sprint into Southsea Deckhand, into a Tinker Sharpshooter Oil, into maybe a Blade Flurry or an Eviscerate, perhaps.
he'd already played the South Sea Deckhand.
Okay.
But
Right.
yeah, I think he just sprint, right? Like, you have no cards no matter what. You want to sprint here. Oh, man. That's pretty much the worst possible top deck you can ever see as a rogue.
What I like about Osaka is that he never has any emotion for his plays, like
Yep.
or the top decks basically. Whenever I talk to him, he's like, "Oh, I guess like he top decked me, but like it's Hearthstone. I expect it. I'm not gonna get salty about it at all."
Yeah, he's a very calm, calculated person. I think also the players
yeah,
can see each other, so
Also, Sukipan just missed lethal from not
yeah, he did.
overriding his death spite, but you know, it's just he had a guaranteed win anyway.
I think the players can see each other on the where they get the same view of the
Yes.
other players we do. So there is a pretty big mental element. I almost expect to see sometimes people bring sunglasses for that because you don't want to give any information.
Yeah, just like in poker, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know at the Blizzard World Championships or the Hearthstone World Championships last year, some players they actually specifically asked whether they'd be able to see their opponents or not, and like they were going to prepare strategies in order
Yeah.
to like just basically like mess with the opponent. Green Sheep was one of those players, and he actually used like this strategy to great effect at the BlizzCon EU qualifier finals.
I think it's definitely a potent strategy, especially because as a Hearthstone player, you never have to deal with that outside of that one situation. You know, you're spending all your time playing into a computer screen, you never see anything. No player has been trained to restrain their emotions. Often you get really frustrated at Hearthstone, so it's just something you don't plan to deal with.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I feel like one of the issues there is, you know, Blizzard is trying to promote this game as like a game that you can play online, and I think they want to kind of tailor their tournament format to be kind of similar to the average ladder experience. In fact, that was one of the criticisms of last hero standing last year, and part of the reason why we have Conquest now. So like, just you can't see your opponents normally, so why should you be able to see them at a LAN setting?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, again, we have a Face Hunter from Osaka. Probably going to be slightly unfavored against this Druid from Sukipan. Just has a lot of taunts. It has some heals. It has pretty good AoEs here. Speaking of AoEs, double swipe.
It's a pretty slow opening for the Druid. You notice that he coined Hero Power on the first turn. He does that because the Wrath is really good as a removal, and he only takes 1 extra damage, essentially, by Hero Powering instead of Wrathing, so it's better to save that Wrath to kill a Knife Juggler on turn 2.
This mind control tech, I foresee getting some value here. And again, Osaka, even though his opening was pretty good, he's left with this like kind of dead owl here.
That's a really good play by Suki, and I think a lot of people would hang on to it. But of
Yeah,
course, there's a snake trap, and the other play is hero power the 2-1, which would have got super punished.
yeah, I completely agree with that play. It's like the problem with mind control teching a face hunter is that even if you get a mind control tech off when he has 4 minions on the board, if he has 4 decently strong minions on the board, that probably means he went to face a lot with those minions, and you're
Yeah,
probably losing.
definitely. Oh man. Well, I mean, your choice is Arcane Golem off curve or Steady Shot by the looks of it. I think I'm leaning towards Steady Shot because you want to get as much hero power value as you can when you're against something like a druid. You know that they're gonna have big creatures and you just want to get there efficiently.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards steady shot as well.
All the way
If
to
you
rope.
if you arcane golem here, you get so punished by swipe.
Ooh, that's really weird.
Oh yeah. So playing around swipe here, I guess.
That was a really smart play based on Suki's hand because the Suki would have traded the mind control tech in, and then it would have been snake trap, and then swipe would have killed everything. Whereas now, an attack would have to be made. I think you just wrath for one and hero power, but that's when you find out that there's more creatures going to be spawning from that.
I don't think you mind taking an extra 3 damage from these snakes though. It doesn't seem that bad. Okay.
Well, got two of them, I guess. Throw one to the face.
Sukipan thinks he's the hunter, going for face all the time.
This is a really good Arcane Golem turn. So, of course, the Arcane Golem adds mana, but most of the things you're worried about as a hunter are the 5 mana creatures. The Sludge Belcher, Druid of the Claw, these taunts they get in your way. 6 mana is Emperor, so that's
Yeah.
not a big deal. It's not stopping you from attacking him.
6 mana is Emperor, sometimes Sylvanas, but first of all, Sylvanas not good against Face Hunter at all, and second of all, not used as much lately. So the other thing you're afraid of is Swipe plus something, but Swipe plus something is not even good here.
Yeah.
Swipe plus Wrath, that is probably.
Force of Nature seems kind of tempting there. I guess he has the whole combo, so he doesn't want to throw it away. You would get the trap procced, and you could find out if there's another trap. I guess Suki does know there's a snake trap, though. He saw Skaka play this before, and we saw snake, so he's got to be aware that's a pretty big possibility.
Suki down at 13 HP. It's
This is a huge choice on the trap. He attacks face with the BGH, and it's a great play. But if it's explosive, it looks horrible. It's essentially that problem of the snake versus explosive being completely different things that you need to target, and there's no way you can know. Oh, he makes the call. That was really important.
yeah. I think at this point you might be like just thinking about how you can win this game, and if it's explosive here, then you're gonna have a hard time winning this game. If it's snake, you can kind of ignore it and then set up lethal in a future turn. I kind of would have liked a wild growth there actually, just so he can get Force of
Yeah.
Nature Savage War on the next turn, and then he would have lethal if the BGH wasn't cleared.
Yeah, I agree.
Although, one thing going against that is that because Osaka has a mad scientist on the board, he can kind of guarantee an explosive trap.
Oh yeah, that's true. And if you got explosive up, then you'd have to trigger before you use the force of nature, and then you wouldn't get the bonus damage, so you wouldn't have enough.
Yeah. Well, here more stuff to face. This board
Wow.
will get cleared.
It's close. He won't be able to clear the mad scientist.
Well, you can swipe it, right?
The innervate draw, putting him 1 damage off lethal. with combo 1 mana and 1 damage. He can't quite squeeze in the hero power, which would give him lethal.
Okay, so swipe here I think is pretty obvious. And then hero power again I think is obvious.
Oh man, this feels really, yeah, I'm very glad he didn't attack. And he would have died from attacking there. That would have been horrible. 5 damage is the easiest thing to come up with. And that means that he still doesn't have it, I guess.
So I guess you hero power here, attack face, and then heal yourself up.
Yeah. You'll be at 6, and Hunter needs 4 damage off the top, which is very specific.
Wow, not proccing that.
That was a misplay for sure. Oh, he could choose not to attack the trap, actually. That's fine. Well, that should be game. He'll attack with the Ancient Allure, putting the Hunter at exactly 14. Then he Force Nature Savage Roars. Really well played.
Yeah, not bad at all. And we're just gonna see the fireworks here. So Sukipan just outdoing everyone here, going up 2-1 against his opposition. Do you kind of remember his last deck?
It was the Zoo Warlock.
Okay. Zoo Warlock, it's gonna do pretty badly against the Face Hunter from Osaka.
Yeah.
And it's gonna do like average, I think, against Rogue. So still anyone's game.
Yeah, this is a really good series. I mean, those were that's like more of a simplistic match that we just watched there with Druid versus Face Hunter, where both players have often just an obvious move for their turn, but there was some pretty specific decisions of points of damage, and they both were calculating it to exact amounts of what they needed, what they could draw. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, Firebat actually messaged me right before, right after he lost his last match, and he was like, "Oh man, I miscounted the last game. I kind of threw it there." Basically, you saw in that last match, Firebat left his opponent at 1 HP, where he could have set up lethal the turn before.
What was the last match again? It was the Hunter versus Hunter, right?
Yeah, sorry, the first match. It was, the Hunter versus Hunter mirror. The last game of the first match, rather.
Yeah, of the first series. Yeah, so, I mean, that really sucked for him to be 1 damage off lethal. I'm not sure if there was a different play for him, really, but did not work out in his favor. So this is Saki fans on match point. If he wins this one, he takes the series, and he will be the first person to advance, and Osaka would have to go down to the decider match.
Kind of a crossroads here. Haunted Creeper versus the Void Caller, or rather the Void Walker. The main benefit of the Haunted Creeper is you have a Knife Juggler also to follow up. But the main benefit here is this seems to be the best one drop against Hunter. Like, how are you going to do, like, especially this type of Hunter, and especially because Osaka doesn't have the Mad Scientist in his hands.
Yeah. If there was a Mad Scientist or a Knife Juggler, especially, then the Haunted Creeper would be way better. But saving the coin here is pretty useful, so you just get to keep that for later and pump out a Defender of Argus.
Rip Void Walker here. So many ways he could die.
Yep. Dies to everything. Served the Warlock well, taking 3 damage.
So what do you think about this play compared to the Abusive plus Hero Power? They seem fairly equivalent. So what are the subtleties that I'm missing?
This play he sets up the weapon, I guess, so he could potentially kill another creature next turn. I like the Abusive a bit better because there would be 3 things on the board, and the Spider having 1 less health wouldn't matter at all. Seems like Void Caller, yeah, you got a Doomguard in your hand. Is that the second time that Saki Fan has top decked Doomguard right as he approaches the Void Caller turn?
I mean, at least he's not getting Mal'Ganis, right? That
Yeah.
would be such a game changer.
Suki fan.
Just keep racing.
Have you been paying attention to the new cards? I think the biggest challenge for me with the new cards is pronouncing all the names correctly.
Oh, that's always the challenge when there's new cards for me.
I'll be reviewing them and then people will say, "Oh, you said it wrong. I'm sorry."
Yeah,
There's
it's
so many
that Canadian
names.
accent.
Yeah. It's the World of Warcraft universe does not manage to pick simplistic names either.
Were you ever a World of Warcraft player?
Yeah, I played World of Warcraft for 9 years actually, pretty seriously.
Okay. So the answer is yes, definitely.
And yet I still fail to pronounce the names correctly. How ironic.
I feel like this is one of those games where it's actually quite possible for the dude to make it out. He has control of the board, and he has an Argus to follow that up.
Yeah. I see if he gets the Doomguard with Defender of Argus, that would just be insane. There's like no possible way that the Hunter is going to manhandle the 6/8 with Taunt.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen double Owl in Osaka's list, so that might be a consideration as well.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hmm. Really interesting play. The Warlock does get punished by multiple creatures because the Warlock doesn't have a lot of ways to deal small amounts of damage easily.
Yeah. I like how with this play, you basically don't allow your opponent to summon any demons from the Void Walker, or rather from the Void Caller. He has to like do something, either like a power overwhelming on himself.
Well, I mean, that was it's kind of a bad turn for Seki, to be honest. He,
Okay. So what does that mean?
I guess you got to kill command the Void Caller still, though. That's a lot of damage. That's what it means. You might skip steady shotting here in favor of the other kill command just because you won't have a beast necessarily after.
Yeah. I'm not really too sure too much about that because there's gonna be 3 beasts on the board. Um,
Yep.
and how does really like basically I feel like Sukipan would have to implosion one of the 3 beasts in order to get a full board clear.
Oh, Flame Imp, really terrible. See, he kind of got punished by using the Defender of Argus last turn, but his turn last turn was really awkward otherwise, so I could see why he did it. I think
Yeah.
maybe like playing Egg and Power Overwhelming on his Void Caller and just attacking face would have been a stronger play, because getting the Argus on the Doomguard is so much better.
On the back swing though, what does Osaka need to get lethal next turn? So he needs 2 damage. So
Yep.
okay, so 2 damage pretty much. I want to say 60% of the cards in his deck.
He has a mana concern. He can only use 2 mana, because it's going to take him 5 to do Steady Shot, Kill Command. So he needs Quick Shot or Abusive Sergeant, I think, are the only ones.
Or Glaive Zuko.
Oh yeah, Cleave Zuka would be perfect. So, I don't know. It's like 18 cards left in the deck. Got like 1 and 3. That is exactly lethal. Doesn't need to Steady Shot because he got 4 damage.
Okay. Yeah, so that actually kind of acts as like two damage for 2 mana.
Yep.
You gain an extra 2 damage for 2 mana this way. So really
Wow.
nice. So I want to say about like 8 cards that could have provided lethal.
Yeah, there was
So-
a good chunk there.
So not like too lucky here, and it's gonna go down to the 3rd, or rather the 5th game once again, the 3rd win for either player. Rogue versus Zoo.
I mean, has been a really long series. These guys playing back and forth, each one taking 1 win and then switching it back to the next guy. Comes down to the final match, and this will be who moves on and who has guaranteed themselves a bit of prize money
Yeah.
and the chance to qualify for packs, of course.
Yeah,
Looks
one thing we haven't considered is the Hearthstone World Championship points that are going to be at PAX. Basically,
True.
if you qualify for PAX, you're guaranteed a few points. just from finishing in the top 8 of packs automatically. And Sukipan, he's not really too much on the map in terms of Chinese Hearthstone World Championship points, but Osaka is definitely way up there. I believe he's top 8 right now in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
those points. He finished pretty high on ladder last season, and I know that because at Assembly, it was the end of the season at Assembly, and everyone was grinding at the same time. I believe he finished like around rank 4 or 5 last season, so that got him a pretty cool number of prize Hearthstone World Championship points. If he can somehow get those championship points from packs as well, it's going to further cement his league in the top 8. And the top 8 is essentially what you want to be in because compared to the top 23, you're going to be able to essentially skip 2 rounds by finishing in the top 8 in your region for World Championship points.
Yep. So, also the first place person at PAX, I think, gets 100 points, right? Which is an absolutely insane amount of World Championship points.
Yeah. Funnily enough, though, 100 points doesn't get you in the top 8.
Well, most people that would place that well probably have more than 0 points.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get 100. That's 5 top season finishes. So
Well, let me tell you what, I definitely like one of these hands better than the other.
yeah, me too. So we saw this match played out once before in the previous series, where it was Suki versus. Uh,
Let me farm.
Let Me Farm, right? And Let Me Farm ended up losing, and he was stuck with the Void Caller, and he kept sapping it. And that was like a really clutch moment where the Doomguard had showed up right on time for the Void Caller. We'll see if Suki gets equally lucky this time and has a Void Caller show up for his Mal'Ganis.
Kind of heads up play here, knowing that backstab or coin SI agent is very typical. And that's kind of like the blowout play from Rogue.
Yep. Those jugglers, of course, really great later with Implosion, so you don't really mind saving that for a bigger swing.
It feels though Sukipan's going to be in the same position once again, though. I mean, right now he can't. It's not efficient for Osaka to coin into the SI agent, but this sets up an even better turn where he can backstab and Farseer himself.
Yeah, this is really... Oh, he didn't play with the Farseer. Normally having a creature on the board against Zoo Warlock, and when they have nothing, is exactly what you want to see. He might have been worried about Implosion there, because Implosion would more often than not kill it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sitting on a 6 damage Blade Flurry, though, Osaka can be pretty content to just wait a few turns and then rip the board apart with one big move. Is he going to coin Healbot?
Oh, I don't like that at all.
That's a pretty weird play. It's equally as strong as the Earthen Ring. You would end up using up the Healbot and you would only gain 1 extra health.
I think Farseer prep Sharp Sword L is definitely a very nice consideration.
Yeah, I like that. It would get punished by the Abusive Sergeant on the 1/1 Imp, though. You could maybe sap the Gang Boss and then coin Earthen. I think the problem for Osaka is he realizes he should have played the Earthen last turn, given this line of play from Suki, and then because he didn't, he doesn't necessarily want to play it now, but yeah, it's the better move.
No action. I feel like Osaka probably wants the Blade Flurry to be more of a surprise, hoping that Sukipan will overcommit to the board.
Yeah, me too. The Warlock so often will just play out everything they can and hope for the best. Does he get lucky? 2 chances. Nope, never lucky. 2 50-50 shots. So that was a 25% chance to happen. Of course, Suki looks really disappointed at that. He knows that his Knife Juggler will die for free now. A lot of plays for Osaka.
Yeah, I like the play that clears the board though.
Which one's that? Attack into the egg and then flurry?
Yeah. The problem with that is you don't have a way to deal with that 1/1 imp at the end, which is going to trade with your um, Farseer so well.
Yep.
And just
Also,
that imp gang boss showing its value seems to summon quite a few imps throughout the course of this game.
the juggler gets to attack twice, I believe. If he did the flurry play here, it attacks once when the egg dies and once when the flurry goes off because the gang boss spawns a creature first.
Oh, that's a good point. Huh.
It's just going face.
This
pretty
also makes
legit.
quite a bit of sense. Just putting as much pressure as possible on this of the board.
Those
Yeah,
two
it's
Arguses.
it's
look
all
really-
these rogue plays, which are kind of hard to anticipate. Skaka is truly showing that he is one of the rogue experts of our time.
Yeah, definitely.
Now this board is really awkward to Blade Flurry. We have two death rattles and one card that has an effect whenever it gets attacked.
Ugh, yeah, and it's just all these spells. It's just a whole bunch of spells and a heal bot. And even if you clear the board, you know the Warlock is just going to play some more stuff. Right? It's really tough casting something like this where we're trying to predict what Osaka is going to do, and there are 5 or 6 different possible good plays that I just don't even want to open my mouth, and we see the magic unfold instead.
Yeah, and then this is kind of in contrast to when we see Suki Pan's plays, and it's Zoo.
Yeah.
So it's not too much, and it's not even like this feels like one of those games that there are not as many decisions as possible coming from the rogue player, or rather coming from the Zoo player. It's more straightforward than anything else.
Like, I think there was a choice this turn to play the Power Overwhelming instead of the Void Walker, but that was about the extent of it, where you know you're going to play the Void Caller, you have Mal'Ganis in your hand, there's no way you wait. Okay. What do you do? You're worried about the demon. You gotta put up with the Mal'Ganis when it gets summoned. It's pretty smooth, I guess. Gonna eviscerate the Nerubian out of the egg and sap the demon.
Yeah, actually very smooth how everything worked out. And we're going to have two conflicting ways to win this game from now on. Sukipan, he's going to have card advantage, but the issue there is Osaka, he has board control and a lot of damage potential in his deck.
Oh, that Doomguard was absolutely terrible draw here. Oh, the Void Caller, on the other hand, that one's pretty good. The Doomguard was useless because you know you want to play Mal'Ganis next turn. The Rogue has 2 cards, and Suki should have been paying attention to know that that's one of them is the coin. Really good draw from Osaka. It's probably the best thing he could ever get there. Throw that coin on for a 1/1. Put the Warlock at 7. Mal'Ganis going to come down, allowing the Void Caller to trade. And
This is actually a really tense game. There's Mal'Ganis in Sukipan's hand. There is a Defender of Argus, and all of those are going to be quite useful.
you actually don't need to play Mal'Ganis necessarily here either.
I like Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis buffs your Void Caller and lets you get an easy trade on Valor Teacher.
Yep. Sap would be lethal.
Azure Drake into Sap. Here's the dream.
That's a bad one. Wow. Okay. Draw here is pretty important. Void Walker is actually really good. So probably Power Overwhelming the Void Caller just to make it trade up on the Azure Drake, and then you can Argus the Doomguard when it comes out.
Okay.
Play
Yeah,
play
the
Void
more
Walker.
the more obvious play would be Argusing the the Void Walker, or rather the Void Caller, but I kind of like your more defensive play a little better.
He doesn't choose to do it though. His taunts are really weak now. He does know the rogue only has one card, but 6 HP, bigger taunt seems a little better.
Setting up lethal here.
Okay.
SI agent is not it.
Does that defend? 9 plus... No. Looks like it's over for Osaka here.
Yeah, it's actually going to be exact lethal.
Yeah. Wow, that was an insane series. I mean, just totally back and forth to come down to a match this close. Warlock at 6 HP, Rogue never drew sprint, has no cards left in his hand. Osaka doesn't know he's dead, and you would think like, okay, maybe he doesn't have damage for his one card, but he does.
Yeah, I think Sukipan's going to count it quite a bit. And he realizes he's going to move on to the semifinals, even give us a fist pump there.
Yeah, that was a fantastic series. I mean, that was a series of winners right there. We could see that both players played it out perfectly. There was so much knowledge coming into those tactical decisions.
Yeah, I think one thing Sukipan will be sad about though is that he didn't get to play Firebat in this tournament. When I told him that he's going to be in the same group as Firebat, he got really excited there because, of course, Firebat, one of the most well-known players in China.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have given you some good bragging rights. Osaka, though, no slouch. I'm sure he can go home happy with that accomplishment.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have to go home because he's going to play the deciding match later today. But coming up right after this, we're actually going to have the losers match between Firebat and Let Me Farm. So stay tuned till then.